Madhurya Kadambini, A Cloud Bank of Nectar by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Fourth shower of nectar, flow of ambrosia. Text 1. Śuddha-bhakti presented in accordance with the sequence written in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Thus far, two types of bhajan kriya or devotional practice have been described: anisthita or devoid of steadiness, and nisthita, that is fixed. In the explanation of anisthita bhajan kriya, its 6 different divisions were presented, such as utsaha-mayi. Yet, following that, contrary to what might be expected, the symptoms of nisthita bhajan kriya or steadfast devotional practice were not examined. Rather, we turned our attention to the topic of anartha-nivritti, or the eradication of impediments to bhakti. This is because it is said in Śrīmad Bhagavatam in 1, 2, 17 and 18. Shri Krishna is the supreme well-wishing friend of the saints, and hearing and chanting his glories is the topmost virtue. He situates himself in the heart of those who constantly engage in hearing about him, thus destroying their amassed inauspiciousness. When all of their inauspiciousness has been virtually destroyed or nashta through constantly serving the Bhagavad, Granth Bhagavad and Bhakta Bhagavad, then unflinching devotion or naistiki bhakti for Uttam Shlok Shri Bhagwan, that is, he who is eulogized by the sublime verses of Shastra, awakens within their heart. In the first line of these verses, Shrunatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravan Kirtanaha, unsteady devotion or unishtita bhakti has been mentioned, and naistiki bhakti has been described afterwards. But between these two types of bhakti, there is a description of anartha-nivritti. Their vast accumulation of inauspiciousness is destroyed. Abhadrani vidhonute. This statement denotes the topic of anartha-nivritti. Furthermore, the use of the words nashta prayeshva abhadreshu, that is, as the mass of inauspiciousness is nearly destroyed, indicates that there is still a portion of inauspiciousness that has not been eradicated. Therefore, the fact that nishtita bhakti is being described now after anartha-nivritti is based entirely on the sequence presented in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. In text 5 of second shower of nectar, the 2 stages of bhajan kriya, anisthita and nisthita, were described. The 6 types of anisthita bhajan kriya were then elaborately delineated from text 6 to the end of that shower. However, the third shower of nectar did not begin with an elaboration on the second type of bhajan kriya, that is, nisthita bhajan kriya, along with its symptoms, as one might expect. Instead, the topic of anartha-nivritti was delineated. Why has anartha-nivritti been discussed after the unsteady practice of devotion instead of the steady practice of devotion? Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura quotes 2 verses from Śrīmad Bhagavatam that support the sequence of his presentation. In these verses, nishtha is described only after an elucidation on anartha-nivritti. Shrunatam swakatha Krishnaha Punya Shravan Kirtanaha Hriday Antasto hi Bhadrani Vidhonuti Suhatsratam Nasht Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavatyuttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1, 2, 17 and 18. Shri Krishna is the eternal well-wishing friend of the saints. Both hearing and uttering his glories are purifying. Shri Krishna situates himself in the heart of those who hear his katha and destroys all other inauspicious tendencies. By continuous service to Śrīmad Bhagavatam, that is Granth Bhagavat, or by constantly rendering service to Bhagwan's pure devotees, that is Bhakta Bhagavat, the inauspiciousness in the heart is almost fully destroyed. It is then that unflinching devotion or Naistiki Bhakti to Bhagwan Shri Krishna, he who is eulogized by transcendental shlokas, awakens within the heart. In the beginning of the first of the aforementioned verses, it is stated, Shrunavatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravan Kirtanaha, that is, attentively hearing and chanting the glories of Bhagwan Shri Krishna are purifying. It is to be understood that these words refer to the stage of anishtita bhajan kriya. This is because they are followed by the description Hriday Antasto He Abhadrani. After entering their hearts, he purifies them of all inauspiciousness. This statement in the first of these two verses describes the stage of anartha nivritti. We thus find that the phase in which anarthas are eradicated is only mentioned after anishtita bhajan kriya. In the first part of the second verse, it is stated, Nashta prayeshva abhadreshu nityam bhagavatta sevaya. As a result of continuously serving the Granth Bhagavat, Śrīmad Bhagavatam, or Bhakta Bhagavat, the pure devotees of Bhagwan, anarthas are almost completely destroyed. This statement indicates that even in the stage of anartha nivritti, portions of some very powerful anarthas have not yet been exterminated. It is for this very reason that in Shravat 3, text 4, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has so logically presented the 5 stages of freedom from these anarthas, namely partially free, ekadesha-vartini, predominantly free, bahudesha-vartini, almost completely free, prayaki, completely free, purna, and absolutely free, atyantiki. In other words, it was mentioned that even up to the stage of rati or bhava, portions of some very powerful anarthas stemming from past offences, that is, aparādha still remain. The same has been indicated in the aforementioned statement from Śrīmad Bhagavatam. In the following verse, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī delineates the sequence in which bhajan progresses. Ādau shraddha tata sadhu sango ath bhajan kriya tato anartha nivritti syat tato nishtha ruchis tataha. Herein, bhajan kriya refers solely to the stage of unsteady devotional practice or anishtita bhajan, because in this verse also the stage of nishtha has been mentioned only after the stage of anartha nivritti. It is therefore logical to describe unwavering devotional practice after the eradication of anarthas has been portrayed. Next, Nishtha Bhajan Kriya will be described. Text 2, 2a, Nishtha and symptoms of Nishtha. Sanskrit Bhav Anubad. The stage of bhakti in which Nishtha or Nischalta, that is, the quality of being unwavering, has arisen is called Nishtita Bhajan Kriya. Even when someone desires to daily perform the limbs, that is, angas of bhakti, such as Shravan and Kirtan, if he is still in the stage of being bound by anartha, then he will be unable to make his performance of bhakti steady on account of the following 5 almost irrepressible obstacles. Lay, that is drowsiness, vikshepa, distraction, apratipatti, incompetence, kashai, bitterness, and rasa-swada, taste for mundane pleasure. The quality of nishtha or fixed determination can only enter one's performance of bhakti after the stage of anartha nivritti, when these 5 obstacles have almost gone. Hence, we should understand that the absence of these 5 obstacles is symptomatic of nishtha. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Here, the symptoms of the stages of Nishtha are being explained. Nishtha means without wavering. When steadiness is achieved in bhajan, it is called Nishtita Bhajan Kriya. Even when the sādhaka tries to bring this steadiness to his bhajan, as long as he remains at a stage in which he is still bound by anarthas, his aspirations will go in vain. He will not achieve steadiness in bhajan because 5 kinds of obstacles remain within him. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has described that the absence of these 5 kinds of obstacles, lay, vikshep, apratipatti, kashai and rasa is the sign that Nishtha has awakened. In Śrīmad Bhagavatam 4.24.59, Sri Rudra prays to Sri Bhagwan. Na yasya chittam bahirartha vibhramam tamo guhayancha vishuddham avishat yad bhakti yoganugrahitam anjasa munir vichishte nanu tatra te gatim. O Master, the fruit of associating with saints, that is, satsanga, is the performance of bhakti yoga to you, through which a person's consciousness is blessed and becomes supremely pure. Consequently, one's consciousness is no longer distracted by external sense objects, and one does not enter into the dark cave of ignorance. At that time, a person can understand you, the absolute truth. This verse describes a sādhaka who is free from lay, vikshep, kashai, apratipatti and rasasvada. Text 2b. The 5 obstacles to Nishtha. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Increasingly oppressive drowsiness while chanting, more while hearing, and even more while remembering is called laya. Reminiscing about various topics related to mundane life at the time of hearing, chanting, or remembering is called vikshepa. Even in the absence of laya and vikshepa, sometimes we may still find that we are simply unable to properly hear, chant, or remember. This obstacle is known as apratipatti. The various impressions of anger, greed, and false ego that manifest while performing sadhan of the limbs of bhakti, such as hearing, chanting, or remembering, is called kashaya. The inability to absorb the minds in the angas of bhakti, such as kirtan, when the opportunity for material sense pleasure arises, is known as rasa swada. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. The 5 kinds of obstacles to Nishtha are as follows: lay, vikshep, apratipatti, kashai, and rasasvada. First, lay. The increasing drowsiness that comes while hearing, chanting, and remembering is known as lay. In other words, due to the obstacle of lay, drowsiness emerges more while hearing than while chanting, and even more while remembering than while hearing. Such sleepiness manifests from the mode of ignorance and deprives the sadhaka of relishing the rasa of bhajan. It prevents him from tasting the sweetness of the limbs of bhakti like shravan and kirtan. In fact, this obstacle arises because relish of the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Bhagwan is absent. Second, vikshepa. When mundane, ordinary topics commingle with hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on, it is called vikshepa. When mundane, ordinary topics co-mingle with hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on, it is called vikshepa. For example, the sadhaka may hold his japmala in his hand and continue chanting his fixed number of rounds, and at the same time engage in gossiping with others about all kinds of mundane things. Then, the sadhaka's restless or distracted mind, totally immersed in mundane topics, is unable to touch the holy name. Since the sadhaka's daily goal is merely the completion of his fixed number of rounds, he remains deprived of truly tasting the nectar of the holy name. As such, although the sadhaka may sit in an assembly and listen to Bhagavad Katha from beginning to end, he will be ensnared by topics of mundane enjoyment. Due to this obstacle, the sadhaka's mind cannot remember the transcendental form and pastimes of Bhagavan, and instead wanders here and there, clinging to various topics. Such wandering is the work of the mode of passion. Third, apratipatti. Even if the first two obstacles, lay and vikshep, no longer remain, we see that the mind of the sadhaka may still be incapable of hearing and chanting. This obstacle is called apratipatti, incompetence or failure. In this condition, a lack of enthusiasm appears within the sadhaka's mind, creating lethargy in bhajan. In fact, enthusiasm or utsaha has been called the life of Shraddha. This apratipatti is born from the mode of ignorance. Fourth, kashai. When previous impressions of anger, greed, conceit, and so forth are present in one's practice of hearing, chanting, and remembering, it is called kashai. When one is still bound by anarthas, then, on account of previous impressions, the following will arise within one's heart: anger, even at the slightest provocation, a desire to relish sweet, tasteful preparations, greed for wealth, and false ego and vanity in regard to one's body and possessions. Fifth, rasa svada. The mind cannot experience material pleasure and simultaneously be absorbed in hearing, chanting, and remembering. Thus, on account of the mind's absorption in material enjoyment, it cannot be absorbed in bhajan. This obstacle is called rasa svada. One should understand that both kashai and rasa svada are the work of the mode of passion. It is by these symptoms that the sadhakas can ascertain for themselves whether or not they have entered śuddha-bhakti. Text 2c. Unaffected by emotions arising from passion and ignorance. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. At this point, one may ask, can the remaining anarthas, those that have not been completely eradicated, cause obstacles in bhakti even after attaining the stage of nishtita-bhakti? Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1-19 has been quoted to address this doubt. Upon the awakening of unflinching determination in bhakti or naishtiki bhakti, the emotions that arise due to the material modes of passion and ignorance, as well as lust, greed, and so on, no longer penetrate the heart of the devotee. Thus, his heart, being situated in śuddha-sattva or pure transcendence, obtains complete happiness. In this verse, we should understand by the conjunctive use of the word cha, which is used in the sense of the total aggregation of the previous terms, that all of these worldly emotions, such as those in the modes of passion and ignorance, still exist at the stage of nishtha. But the verse also states that the consciousness of the devotee remains more or less undisturbed or untouched. This statement establishes that as long as the stage of bhava has not been attained, these worldly emotions essentially exist, but in a benign form and not as impediments to bhakti. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura is saying that even after the stage of anartha-nivritti, moods arising from the material modes of passion and ignorance continue to exist within the heart of sadhaka. However, the way in which such moods create these 5 types of obstacles and disturb the bhajan of one at the stage of anartha-nivritti does not occur for one at the stage of nishtha. Rather, at that stage, they remain in an innocuous form. Here, the author presents that the last line of the 2 verses from Śrīmad Bhagavatam, quoted at the beginning of this 4th shower, and the subsequent verse, Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Tada rajas tamo bhavaha kama lobha dayaschaye chet aiter anavidham sthitam sattve prasidati. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1-18 and 19. Upon the awakening of the unflinching determination in bhakti, naishtiki bhakti, the moods that arise due to the material modes of passion and ignorance, lust, greed, and so on, no longer contaminate the heart of the sadhaka. Thus, his heart, being situated in Shuddha-sattva, pure transcendence, obtains complete happiness. The letter cha in the above verse is understood to mean aggregate, which indicates that the lust, greed, and emotions in the modes of passion and ignorance are still present. However, at that point, they are not impediments to bhajan, but remain within the heart of the sadhaka innocuously. This explains why, when one has nishtha, no obstacle remains in one's hearing, chanting, and remembering. In his Sarartha-darshini commentary on these verses, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura explains the meaning of the word anavidham as follows. It means that prior to the awakening of nishtha in bhajan, the heart of the sadhaka is pierced by the sharp arrows of lust, greed, and so forth. So how can it feel joy? How will the sadhaka be capable of thoroughly tasting the nectar of hearing, chanting, and remembering? A person being torn apart by arrows will never be entirely able to relish his meal. Text 3. 3a. Nishtha directly in bhakti herself and nishtha in that which is favorable to bhakti. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Nishtha is also of two types. First, resting in bhakti herself, that is sakshat bhakti-vardhini, which is directly related to the 9 limbs of bhakti such as Shravan and Kirtan. And second, resting in that which is favorable to bhakti, tad anukul vastu-vardhini, that is related to favorable qualities required to directly practice the limbs of bhakti. Although sakshat bhakti vardhani nishtha is of many types, there are 3 main divisions: kayiki, vachiki, and manasi. Kayiki means performed by the body, vachiki means performed by speech, and manasi performed within the mind. Some people are of the opinion that a sadhaka first develops nishtha in bhakti performed with the body, then in bhakti performed by speech, and finally in bhakti performed within the mind. However, devotees develop a greater inclination towards Bhagwan in either Kayiki Bhakti, Vachiki Bhakti, or Manasi Bhakti, according to their varying degrees of endurance in relation to the body, brilliance in relation to the faculty of speech, or power in relation to the mind. This is due to the impact of their various previous experiences or samskaras. Thus, some say that there is no fixed sequence in regard to these 3 divisions. Qualities such as not desiring respect from others, yet always offering others respect, friendship, and compassion are favorable for bhakti. Nishtha in such qualities is called tad anukul vastu vardhini. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Now, the categories of nishtha are being defined. Nishtha in bhakti is of 2 types. First, fixed determination related directly to bhakti herself or sakshat bhakti vishayini, and second, fixed determination related to qualities favorable to bhakti, that is tad anukul vastu vardhini. Although the terms used in Bhāvānuvāda and the Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti are different, their implications are the same. The word vardhini literally means to rest in, and in nishtha, resting directly in bhakti, or nishtha in qualities that are favorable to bhakti, and vishayini literally means within the scope of. First, sakshat bhakti vishayini nishtha, or fixed determination related directly to bhakti herself. The nishtha is of 3 types: related to the body or kayiki, related to the speech or vachiki, and related to the mind or manasi. First, kayiki nishtha, fixed determination related to the body. Resolve in performing activities such as the following constitutes kayiki nishtha: hearing Sri Bhagavad Katha, serving the Tulasi tree and picking her leaves, making flower garlands for Bhagwan, worshipping the deity, offering obeisances to the deity, circumambulating the deity or a holy place, and cleansing the temple of Bhagwan. Second, Vāciki Nishtha, or fixed determination related to speech. Resolve in performing activities such as the following constitutes Vāciki Nishtha. Kirtan of the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Bhagwan. Offering prayers in eulogy, revealing one's mind through prayerful entreaty. Glorifying Bhagwan and reciting narrations about him. Third, Manasi Nishtha, or fixed determination related to the mind. Resolve in contemplating and remembering the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Sri Bhagwan constitutes Manasi Nishtha. Unflinching faith or steadiness in these angas of bhakti is to have fixed determination related directly to bhakti herself. In his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī has written, when someone's bhajan is uninterrupted and devoid of any distractions, it is called Nishtha. Some people are of the opinion that Nishtha first awakens in bhakti performed with one's body, then in bhakti performed through one's faculty of speech, and finally in bhakti performed with one's mind. But this is not the sequence every sādhaka passes through. According to each sadhaka's previous impressions, we find that he will have varying degrees of endurance, brilliance and power. Some sadhakas have more mental power than physical endurance or brilliant faculty of speech. So, it is not so astonishing that they will first attain steadiness in bhakti performed with their mind or manasi bhakti. That is why it can be said that there is no fixed sequence in the attainment of these three forms of nishtha. Second, tad anukul vastu vishayini nishtha, or fixed determination related to qualities that are favorable to bhakti. Qualities such as offering respect to others but never demanding respect in return, sympathy, compassion, forgiveness, gratefulness, and so forth are favorable for bhakti. Offering respect to others and never demanding respect in return help nourish humility, the elixir that gives life to the bhakti of the sadhaka. Compassion for every living entity, friendship, and a mood of kindness are qualities by which bhakti becomes free from obstacles and firmly established within the heart of the sadhaka. For those who cannot forgive the faults of others, praying to God for forgiveness is nothing but imitation. Of all these qualities, the quality of gratitude or kritagyata is especially favorable for bhakti, for Bhakti Devi does not appear in an ungrateful heart. Sri Bhagwan himself is thoroughly imbued with the quality of gratitude. Bhagwan gives his very self as charity when the devotee makes a simple offering of tulasi and water. When the evil sorceress Putana simply imitated the mood of a mother, Bhagwan made her life successful by instating her in the exalted position of his own nursemaid in Goloka. Gratefulness is truly the testimony of an elevated personality's greatness, and ungratefulness is the testimony of a lowly person's worthlessness. To whatever extent a person has become truly elevated, gratitude will be found residing in his heart. Bhakti Devi will never appear in a small-hearted person devoid of gratitude. Text 3b. Not desiring respect for oneself and offering all respect to others, etc., does not necessarily indicate nishtha. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Sometimes we see that a self-controlled devotee lacks nishtha in bhakti, but has nishtha in such qualities as not desiring respect and always offering it. Inversely, we may also observe that a devotee with an arrogant nature has nishtha in bhakti, but not in such qualities. It appears to be a valid inference to many, not only to those with immature intelligence, but even to learned persons, that the presence of these favorable qualities signifies nishtha in bhakti, and that their absence signifies a lack of nishtha in bhakti. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. It is possible that within the heart of a self-controlled sādhaka, we may find that all these good qualities are present despite the absence of nishtha in bhakti. In other words, such qualities may be evident in some self-controlled devotees who are still at the stage of unsteady devotion, that is, anishtita bhakti, and conversely, we may find a sadhaka with an exalted nature in whom nishtha has already arisen but who does not exhibit any of these qualities. Therefore, there is no certainty that the auspicious qualities will awaken wherever nishtha is manifest. The opinion that the presence of all these good qualities is an indication that nishtha in bhakti has been awakened, and that the absence of them is an indication that it has not, may be adopted not only by those who are ignorant of Shastra, but even by those who are wise and conversant with Shastra. Text 3c. Nishtha in Kirtan and so forth is actually nishtha. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. And this is understandable given that Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1-19 states that it is only when Naishtiki Bhakti awakens within the devotee's heart that he will no longer be hindered by passion and ignorance, or by lust, greed, and the like. Thus situated in Śuddha-sattva, he will achieve true happiness. Intense enthusiasm to perform the limbs of bhakti, such as hearing and chanting, is the actual benchmark of steadiness, nishtha in bhakti, and laxity in performing the limbs of bhakti is the benchmark of unsteadiness, anishtha in bhakti. This is but a summary of the deliberation on the subject of bhakti nishtha. Thus ends the Bhāvānuvāda of the fourth shower of nectar, named Nishyanda-bandhura, or flow of ambrosia. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. We find the apparent evidence for this misconception regarding what indicates nishtha in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1-18 and 19. Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye chet aiter anavidham sthitam sattve prasidati. When Naishtiki Bhakti manifests within the heart, it can no longer be affected by the modes of passion and ignorance, nor by their effects such as lust and greed. Thus, becoming situated in Śuddha-sattva, one's heart attains true happiness. Although the previously mentioned qualities are favorable for nishtha in bhakti, they are not required to determine nishtha in bhakti. The intensity or apathy of one shravan, kirtan, etc. are requisite in determining whether one is practicing nishtita bhakti or anishtita bhakti. In other words, we should understand that intense endeavor in shravan and kirtan indicates firm steadiness in bhakti, and its absence indicates unsteadiness. Thus ends the Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti on the fourth shower of nectar, named Nishyanda-bandhura, or flow of ambrosia.